Near is the great day of the Lord, near and coming very quickly. Listen, the day of the Lord. In it the warrior cries out bitterly. A day of wrath is that day, a day of trouble and distress, a day of destruction and desolation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet and battle cry against the fortified cities and the high corner towers. I will bring distress on men so that they will walk like the blind, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood will be poured out like dust, and their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to deliver them on the day of the Lord's wrath, and all the earth will be devoured in the fire of his jealousy, for he will make a complete end, indeed a terrifying one, of all the inhabitants of the earth.
The Day of the Lord is a biblical phrase used in both the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. This video series explores various Bible passages, noting and cataloging the various themes associated with that day. Because the Day of the Lord is associated with darkness, wrath, trouble, distress, destruction, desolation, one might get the impression that the Day of the Lord is a time of God's judgment. It is God's judgment, but it's much more than that. Hopefully, once we review the associated passages, we will understand God's purpose for this significant and profound time period coming in our future. The purpose of this video is to introduce the subject with the following question. The Day of the Lord, also called the Day of Yahweh, is a well-known phrase specifically associated with a series of events that must take place just prior to the second coming of Messiah Jesus, who will return to Jerusalem to rule over both Israel and the entire world. Ultimately, the events associated with the Day of the Lord build up to a grand finale, inaugurating the eternal universal rule of God through His Son Jesus. We aren't talking about a period of 24 hours, as the phrase might suggest. We are talking about a particular extended period of time which is punctuated by unusual, abnormal, and extraordinary changes in the weather, nature, and the celestial bodies. These events are carefully considered and selected to send a message to the world, and especially to Israel, that the time is short and that a particular moment in time requires our full attention and can't be put off until tomorrow. Perhaps we can best understand the phrase, Day of the Lord, if we consider the meaning of another similar phrase, the order of the day. The order of the day is something that is a priority in a certain situation or at a given time. Among the many tasks at hand, the order of the day must be done first. Among all the people we encounter every day, the order of the day is to give our full attention and priority to the person that commands our attention. The day of the Lord will be the order of the day, except that God's business is to be considered during that time, by everyone on the planet, all at the same time. During our time, the business to be considered on any particular day is unique to each person or group of people. We all have our own problems and challenges to deal with, depending on our own set of unique situations and circumstances. By contrast, once the chain of events associated with the day of the Lord begins, everyone in the world will be compelled to deal with God's priorities, and all at the same time. At that time, the warnings and the challenges that the Lord creates will be, or should be, priority number one for every person on the planet. Like the day of the Lord, natural disasters are of universal concern and tend to rally the nation together in a unified effort to help those in need. A sudden and terrible event in nature, such as a hurricane, tornado, or flood, usually results in serious damage and many deaths. But after the initial feelings of fear, anxiety, and helplessness, people soon come together to help one another. The collective order of the day is to assess the damage and ascertain who needs the help. Some may be injured, trapped in a building, or suffering from shock. These people must be given priority, and whatever needs to be done for them must be done first. The day of the Lord will be like that, except more so. At first, sudden and terrible events associated with the day of the Lord will seem to be nothing more than natural disasters. But as the chain of events progresses, it will eventually become apparent that these terrible events are not explicable in terms of natural or scientific laws, and perhaps some with eyes to see will recognize them as the work of a divine agency. At that time, people will be compelled to ask, what's going on here? What does it all mean? I suspect that somehow God will let the world know the source and the purpose of these events, and yet, even in the face of utter doom, some people will be unwilling or unable to believe that God has become the order of the day. To explain this, let me tell you a brief story I once heard. A Christian was arguing with an atheist about the existence of God. The atheist was heard to say, "I won't believe there is a God until he stands right here in front of me." The apologist countered with, "No, you wouldn't. You will probably interpret such an event as a hallucination." He's right. The miracle of God doesn't necessarily convince those who have highly perfected rationalization skills. During the run-up to the coming of Jesus, God will send warning signs, some in the form of earthquakes and unusual celestial events. At first, such events will seem like natural disasters, but eventually the divine origin will become evident. Even so, there will always be some who attempt to explain them away with logical reasons, in quotes, even if these rationalizations are specious and unconvincing. When the order of the day becomes our doing business with God, His overt presence challenges us in existential and fundamental ways. I might not want to deal with God right now because of what it would mean about my existence. I have plans for my life, thank you very much. What right does God have to come along and mess up my life? But God says through Jeremiah, "I know the plans that I have for you." But if His plans are not my plans, then perhaps I will be in the market for another explanation of the disasters. There must be a scientific explanation, right? I just don't know what it is. I have my own priorities and my own concerns. But other people are simply asleep, even when they are awake. They walk around in a daze, or they have become hypnotized by various pressures and agencies that seek to control the masses. Such people need to be awakened. According to the article, 15 Clever and Funny Ways to Wake Someone Up, numero uno is loud, harsh sounds. Quoting the article, the first and best way to startle someone from his or her deep sleep is by way of some harsh sounds. Any musical instrument that you don't know how to play will do. Just blow it loud. Remember, a trumpet can't be surpassed by any other instrument here, though. Another easily available option might be a whistle, or if you know that you have the most inelastic vocal cords of all, simply start screaming in their ears." End quote. Apropos of sleepers everywhere, the book of Revelation mentions 7 trumpets that will sound when the order of the day will be the coming kingdom of God's rule on earth. If you have gotten this far in the video, thank you for your attention. In summary, not only is the day of the Lord associated with darkness, wrath, trouble, distress, destruction, and so on, it will see a major war between the nation of Israel and her enemies. Each event in the chain will be more intense than the one before it, until all hope of survival will fail. And when the wrath of God is spent, Jesus returns for his people, and all those who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. My plan is to turn this video into a video series where we examine the few passages of the Bible that pertain to the subject. As we explore these passages, we will look for and catalog the Bible's key themes associated with the day of the Lord. The Lord willing, we will examine the 4th chapter of Malachi next. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful to your own studies. If you did, please click thumbs up and share this video with others. Thanks for watching.